So I wanna get out of the way first that I played Bayonetta 3 first, and I was not planning on playing Bayonetta 1 and 2 again. But Bayonetta 3 left such a bad taste in my mouth, I wanted to play the first two. So I'm going to talk about those first, and then we'll get to Bayonetta 3. And that will be kind of my pure unfiltered rant, and then maybe I'll do kind of like an altogether retrospective kind of, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, Bayonetta 1. I think of the three, Bayonetta 1 is, I want to say is my favorite, but I don't feel like I can. I don't feel like I can say any of these is my favorite, which really sucks. Bayonetta 1 has, I think, the best direction. Like, they have everything concise and there that they wanted, and everything is the way it should be. But, and there's always a but with these games. For Bayonetta 1, it has a small number of big problems that just kind of sour the experience for me. The quick time events are just garbage, just god awful, just ugh, I hate the quick time events. They make me want to gouge my eyes out. Because here's how it goes usually. You're going through the level, everything's fine, and then all of a sudden you're dead, and you're like, what the heck? I just got insta-killed. So you go through again, you're enjoying the cutscene, and then you're like, oh, there's a quick time event. Oh, here, let me press the button. No, I'm dead again because I didn't press it soon enough. Okay, well, next time through, let me mash the button, and then it will happen, when it's ready. And then I press it, and I start mashing it, and then, oh, nope, if you press it too soon, the prompt goes away, and you can't press the button. Cool, okay, so I'm dead multiple times now, and now I have to time it. And the timing is pretty precise, and I keep forgetting where it shows up. And maybe that's my problem, but it's really annoying. And the extra problem with that is deaths count against your score. So thanks, game. And yeah, it's not just like, oh, you lose a bunch of health. No, you die instantly, which is just great, just wonderful. So yeah, there's that. And then there's another problem I noticed, which is witch time doesn't really work as I feel like it should, or as it does in the later games. Because when you use okay, so when you dodge, it's supposed to give you witch time, but it doesn't every time. Sometimes you're in a fight where it's like you're already in witch time, so why would you get double witch time? Sure, I'll give it that. But then sometimes that's not the case, and you're just in a normal fight, and sometimes you'll get witch time, but most of the time you won't. And this is even besides the fact that I think it's like chapter 5, oddly enough, is when you first get Bat Within, which I think is kind of late to be getting that, and that's frustrating. But I would even activate Bat Within. It would work. And then I still wouldn't get witch time. So what the heck? What's the deal with that? That's kind of ruining how my combat goes, because that's supposed to let me set up more combos. But no, just doesn't. I don't know. It's frustrating. And then there's so many enemies with command grabs. It's ridiculous. And just, ugh. I don't know. I love so much about Bayonetta 1, but there's a few of those frustrating gameplay aspects that just kind of suck. But, other than that, like the angel designs, the level design, just the way the story goes, I love so much about Bayonetta 1. I want to say it's my favorite game, but there's just these problems that just kind of weigh it down. And that's sad and frustrating. And then we have Bayonetta 2, which, I want to like Bayonetta 2 as well, but, it's not Bayonetta 1. Like, in Bayonetta 1, most of the weapons you get are actually, I think it's just about every weapon that's not, just about every two-handed weapon, I think has about the same combo. I could be wrong, but most of the weapons in Bayonetta 1 have the same combo. Because, why would you program in a different combo? That's boring. Or why wouldn't, No, that's not, no. Why would you program in a different combo? That's, that's more work. I don't know, whatever. But in Bayonetta 2, you got tons of more weapons with more combos, but I really liked the first game's combo. And there were certain weapons that I liked in the first one. Like, I think my favorite weapons in the first one were the Onyx Rose, because they just shotgun blast and they do tons of damage. Oh, it's so nice. In 2, not only do I hate the main combo, but the weapon availability is, I don't really care for it. And you can't start with the Scarborough Fair. You kind of just don't. You have to unlock it somehow. I don't remember how, but I would have liked to have that option, because Love is Blue, I don't like that combo. I wasn't used to it. It was weird to get used to. And even by the end of the game, I was like, yeah, I really don't like this combo. I want to go back to the old one. Also, the writing in the second one was, I mean, it was fine, but I would say it wasn't quite as good, because it was like, oh, we're trying to like patch up certain aspects of the story and tie it into the first game and also add new stuff. And it's just like, whatever. But the first one just kind of, had that conciseness to it. It had a full story, it had good character development, and I mean, it's Bayonetta, so it's not super deep, but it had those ups and downs. It had structure to it. 2 was a little more all over the place. I mean, most of it is you have to rescue Jean from hell, and then another character shows up and is like, I need to get to this mountain and do the thing. I need to get to this mountain and do the thing. But the final boss was not quite as epic as the first game. I don't know if much could beat that, because, Bayonetta is all about, like, we have to go one step beyond. And 2, while there's plenty of great fights and there's plenty of, like, epic moments, at least the final fight just doesn't quite go beyond. It kind of feels like you're trying to retread the first game and how amazing it was, while not succeeding at it. So, I don't know. Yeah, I would say between 1 and 2, I like everything about 1 except for those few gameplay hiccups that kind of just, like, make it a slog to sit through. And 2, I kind of enjoy everything except for how it plays. Just the basic combos are not fun for me. So I'm going to just get this part out of the way. At this point, I don't really care about the whole Helena Taylor controversy. There's just so much going on there that I can't bother to care anymore. The only thing that worried me about it initially was that it could be a symptom of greater problems with the game, which is why I was a little bit nervous before getting it. But a few online reviews made it seem like it was still really good, and it does still play well, but... well, you know what? Let me stick with the good first, and then we'll get to the complaints, I guess. So, long anticipated Bayonetta 3. It controls just as well as 2, if not better. The combos are still there. The combos feel good. You get lots of weapons. This time around, you don't get to attach weapons to your hands and feet. Now you get one weapon set at a time, and you just switch between, your 2 weapon sets, rather than here's my hands and feet weapons, and here's my other hands and feet weapons. No, now everything's just one set, which, it was kind of cool to be able to mix and match, but it's not 100% necessary, and it's fine. There's plenty of good weapons to get, and they just throw them at you. Like, literally, by the end of the game, just doing the story, and I think I did one secret level where you get a weapon from it, I ended up with like 10 weapons to choose from, which is a lot. And, there's a few weapons I don't really like, but there's plenty of choices. There's plenty of good weapons. One of my favorites is one of the ones you get later, which is... it's interesting, and you just shoot bats at people, and it's cool. But one of I think my other favorite was, like, yo-yos, which you get really early. But yeah, plenty of weapon choices. There's no shortage of those. You also have a new mechanic in this, which is Demon Slaves, where you can summon a demon to basically fight in Bayonetta's place. I mean, she's still there, she can still get hit, and the demon has its own, like, health bar, kind of, which is just your magic bar. But the demons basically just pack an extra punch, so if you're trying to fight a bigger enemy, you can knock them around a bit more, you can knock their health down faster. It's just pretty great. I did only end up really using Madama Butterfly for most of it. It's just like, I don't know. I didn't really see much point to upgrading a lot of the other demons, because her combos just felt the best. The level design in this is, I would say, probably better. Areas are a bit more open. There's a bit more encouragement to explore. Like a lot of in like the first 2 games, you have the Muspelheims and the Alfheims and those types of like secret verses. And this time around, they're a bit easier to find. Like pretty much all the secret verses, to my knowledge, like glow instead of just like oh, you just have to go to this location, and you don't really know that it's there unless you find it. No, like it's actually, it glows and you just go to it. And then the challenge levels, which are like purple, they have, you know, like the Muspelheim, Alfheim challenges, and most of those are fine. There's only like one that I actually like quit out of because I was like, there's no way this one's getting done. Which it was one of the don't touch the floor ones, and it sucked because you had to stick with a specific weapon, and it just was not good. But other than that, most of the fights are fine. Most of the challenges are fine. The secret verses are fine. Everything's fine. And this game feels good to play. Okay, now that I've gotten all that out of the way, let's get to my complaints, because there are a lot. Enemy design in this is kind of garbage. I would be fine if they weren't the entirety of the game. But angels take a backseat, enemy demons take a backseat. Pretty much all the old enemies take a backseat, and the homunculi are over 90% of what you'll encounter. And everything else is only in secret verses. So, why? Not only that, but they're just not memorable. Like, if you asked me to name any, like, homunculi, I could maybe name one. But and half of them are, like, weird cloud names, and it's just, like some of the old angels and demons got, like, not just their names, but also, like, a title. Like, Sloth was the Swindler of Progress, if I remember correctly. Like, that kind of stuff is just cool for me. But these, it's like, I don't know, what, like, Stratocumulus model, like, combat model. Like, okay, cool. Why should I care? Not only that, but this game does something I really hate, that I don't remember the other Bayonetta games doing, or at least not doing as much or as bad. And that is enemies with, like, how do I put it? Is there a name for it? Basically, enemies where you have to do a specific thing in order to break their defenses, in order to actually do anything to them, which was one of the reasons I couldn't get through DMC4, because there were these, like, it wasn't just one enemy either in DMC4. There were several, but one of the ones that I hated the most was like, oh, you have to shoot your guns to get rid of its shadow cloak, and then you can hurt it. And it's like, you're breaking up my combos. You're ruining the combat. You're slowing things down, and I don't like it. And this game had a few of those. There were some enemies that just dodged around and jumped around, and it's like, okay, you're annoying. Then there was one that basically, like, I don't even know how to describe some of these. There's just like blobs of green and white. But there's one that had got like a shield on itself, and it would just kind of sporadically get a shield, like diamonds all over it, and then you just had to wait for it to finish its attack before you could actually hit it again. Like, why? Like, at least, like, a lot of enemies would get shields, and you could break them with your demon slaves, but I don't think that one you could. Your demons would be like, I can't break it, whoops. And then there's another one that's just a big tower, and it does two things. One, Bayonetta can't reach it, only her demon slaves can. So you have to destroy the tower with your demon slave in order to do anything. And the other worst thing that it does is it turns all other enemies invisible. So not only are you trying to demon slave your way through this tower, you also have to fight invisible enemies around you, which is just, not impossible, but just frustrating. Why is that there? Why is that a thing? Why are you swindling my progress? So yeah, the enemies suck, and angels and demons are barely in this. As a result of angels and demons kind of taking a backseat, I think the big moments just don't hit as hard, because it's like, okay, this is a big enemy. What is it? I don't really care. Whatever. It's just some word that's made up or whatever, or some scientific term. I don't even know what I'm fighting. Half of these enemies have extra variants that look exactly the same, and I mean, you'd have a little bit of that in at least the first game, maybe the second game as well, where it's just like, oh, this is the same but bigger. But literally, a lot of the enemies just, I can't tell them apart. There's only like a few where it's like, okay, this one's different enough that I can at least tell it apart. I couldn't tell you anything else about it. And there's nothing to like tie their designs together aside from green and white. They're just kind of like, they kind of look like they were designed first, concept second. You know, like here's a cool design for a monster. Okay, let's make it look like the homunculi in the rest of the game. Okay, like why? Like one of them is like this weird like Chinese dragon that you'd see at like a Chinatown parade or whatever, and it's like, okay, what does that have to do with any of the other? How is that like human like? Like because one thing about the homunculi is like you'll see as they form in any like level that they'll have like goopy like humanoid forms kind of like reaching out to like form it. And that's cool, but just everything else about them it's not good. I don't like it. I mean, they're not the worst designs I've ever seen, but they're not great and they're not memorable. So yeah, bad enemy designs, bad like moves or abilities that just ruin the combat in certain instances, which is frustrating because otherwise the combat is fantastic. Speaking of awful combat, then there's Viola's levels. She's the new character in this game, and for one, I hate playing as her because instead of dodging, you have to block, and the timing is just weird. I'm not used to it. And the worst part is, not only am I not used to it, it didn't get a chance to breathe. She kind of felt thrown in, and if she had been taken out of the game, it wouldn't have, like, gameplay-wise, wouldn't have really mattered. Because she's barely in it, and she doesn't get her time to shine. So, that was frustrating. Like if you're gonna give me something awful, at least, like, all in on it. At least give me a chance to get used to it. Instead of, like, oh, here's one Viola level every 3 Bayonetta levels. And then, you know, okay, now it's the end of the game and you've barely played as her. Good job. Not only that, a lot of enemies seem like they're more designed around Bayonetta's moveset and not so much around Viola's. So fighting some enemies is just uncomfortable. Because you have to block, but half of these swings are so big, it's just like, what's the time? It's so big or so small, or it's like a little of both, or some are lasers, and it's like, what's the timing on this? Like, normally I would just dodge. I'd even, like, get bat time really good, but having to press a new button to block and then try to figure it out that way, it just doesn't feel like it works, and it doesn't give you enough time to get used to it. It's not good. I mean, there are plenty of optional levels if you get all the Umbran Tears of Blood, where you can choose to play as Viola. But why would I? I have literally no reason to choose her over Bayonetta. So, yeah, there's that. Then there's extra Jean levels, where they suck. A theme with this game, the levels of... Jean's levels suck. You get like these side-scrolling Metroidvania type like stealth missions, and then they're just not fun. At least they're short, but they're not fun. And then her last level is just like a motorcycle segment. Again, a side-scrolling motorcycle segment. And it was frustrating because it was a mess. So, in between the fun levels, there's just a bunch of BS, and it's not good. It's like any time I started to have fun, it's like, no, fun's not allowed. You have a bad time. And speaking of a bad time, oh my god, the story is just the worst. The story is the worst. It starts out fine enough, except, oh, now there's a multiverse, because everything's got to be a multiverse in 2022, because it just, like, why? Why does everything got to be a multiverse? But yeah, anyway, it starts out fine. Things start out okay. And then you start going through the levels and you start realizing, every single one of these levels has basically the exact same format. You go to a new universe. You encounter a new Bayonetta. You temporarily get her demon slave. Then you fight a big homunculus, probably. And then you get a big set-piece boss with one of your demon slaves. And then you get the weapon and the demon slave that you saw before. And then rinse and repeat until plot actually progresses, which is not until like the last 2 levels. Like, okay, like there's no progression. There's no story progression. It's just like, oh, we're literally collecting these things. We're collecting MacGuffins. Why are we collecting MacGuffins? That's boring. Like, the first 2 Bayonettas had, like, story progression as you got through. Like, stuff happened. Things changed. In this one, like, nothing changes until the very end. Viola's the only one who gets any sort of development, and her development isn't good. It's very minimal, and it's just kind of bad. Like, just as a character, like, on her own, she's not... Like, she's not why I'm playing this. She's not Bayonetta. She's not confident. Or even when she is, she's, like, fails at it. And there's a reason why she sucks so much, which has to do with the ending. In fact, maybe I should just talk about the ending, because that was the worst part. So, big spoilers from here, if you want to play it yourself. The game ends so awful. So first of all, the big bad guy is just a guy. It's just some guy who... They put it off as like some big twist, and literally the moment I saw him, I'm like, oh yeah, he's the bad guy, isn't he? And then Luke is in this game, and he's one of the coolest bosses, which should raise some red flags. They set up a romance with Bayonetta and Luca, because I don't know where Luca got these mysterious powers. They don't explain it. Maybe it's explained in some of the side stuff. Maybe it's explained in some of the extras. But that's not where this should be explained. But this should... If there's an explanation, it should be in the story. It should be in the cutscenes for something that important. But no. And not only are Bayonetta and Luca a thing, Viola is their daughter, which explains why she is so awful. She has Bayonetta powers, but she has the awkwardness of Luca without any of the suave. And then the final fight starts out good. And then you get to this moment where the previous 2 Bayonettas show up, and you get to kind of play with them. And that's really cool. And then that goes away. And Bayonetta gets jobbed by one of her own demons. And she and Luca both just die. I cannot state how upset I was. And you can like kind of see where they're trying to go with this. And not only does Bayonetta get jobbed by one of her own demons, so in the first 2 games, what happened in the final boss? Was it stupid? Yeah, maybe. But was it big and exciting? Did you punch Jubileus into the sun? Did you summon a half-angel, half-demon queen to beat, what was his name? What was the second game's final villain? I don't remember. But was it Aesir? No. Yes? I think it was Aesir. Did you summon half Jubileus, half Demon Queen to, like, destroy him? And did they have Infinitons as your final, like, combo? Yes. Did the third game have any of that? No. The final fight just ended up pitiful. And what happened at the end was just pitiful. Bayonetta and Luca just die because... And then you do have this really touching dance at the end with Bayonetta, and it's cool, but... It's just, it felt worse because of what happened just before. And then you play as Viola one more time. And you fight Shadow Bayonetta and Kraken. And that fight sucks because, again, that seems like it was designed as a Bayonetta fight and not a Viola fight. But you have to play as Viola. In other words, it does not feel good. And I almost forgot about the whole truth thing. They talk about truth so much in this, and it's like, what are you talking about? That makes no sense. Please make sense. I know these stories are never really deep, but like, come on. You gotta say more than, oh, this is my truth. But anyway, so yeah, after fighting Shadow Bayonetta, then she goes, do it, you have to prove yourself. And it's like, prove yourself for what? And do what? Like, she has to kill you? But to prove herself for what? And then she goes, you did it. Let me give you a new name. And you're like, no, please don't do it. And then you get to the post-game scene, and of course, Rodin calls her Bayonetta. He calls Viola Bayonetta, and that killed any hype that I ever would have had for a Bayonetta 4. Would I have expected one? Probably not. If there was one, would I have been excited? If they didn't do this? Yeah, probably. I could probably forgive most of this game if not for that garbage ending. It was absolutely garbage. Not only did like the ending completely go against Bayonetta's entire character and entire like whole thing, just throughout the game she felt weak too. Like, not like when you control her necessarily, but in cutscenes she's kind of struggling through it all, which is the opposite of how she should be. Like, okay, yeah, sometimes she fights tough enemies, sometimes she gets hit a couple times, but this one, it just didn't feel like she had weight to her. Like, by Bayonetta 2, she was confident, she was strong. She didn't take anything seriously, unless it was, oh no, my friends are in trouble. And even then, it's just like, I don't recall an instance where she seemed like she was going to be weak or seemed like she needed help. But in this one, she had to help herself out a lot, which is weird. Just, I don't know what to say about this game. It's disappointing, I guess. I guess I do know what to say. It's disappointing. That ending made me like retrospectively look back and say, oh wow, there were a lot of awful things in this game, weren't there? I guess I'm just disappointed with a little bit of all of it. There were good aspects, but it actually kind of made me not want to do any post-game stuff. I was that upset. I was just like, I need to cleanse my palate. I'm going to go back and play the first 2 Bayonettas. And I'm playing Bayonetta 1 right now, just, again, to cleanse my palate. I am realizing I am remembering a couple things that I hated about Bayonetta 1, like the awful QuickTime events, or how sometimes when you dodge things, you either don't actually dodge them, or it doesn't activate witch time for some reason. But other than that, like, everything's there. The story is at least compelling. It makes sense. It's not awful. There's not characters introduced that are supposed to take over the franchise and aren't given enough development time. Like at least in Devil May Cry 5, Nero had 2 entire games and lots of gameplay moments to be like, hey, this is a good character. He kind of deserves to take over, like, as the face of the franchise. But Viola doesn't deserve that. She's barely in this game. There's no reason for her to take over. She doesn't deserve it. She's not a compelling character. She doesn't have Bayonetta's confidence. I swear to God, if they make another game... At this point, I doubt I'm going to play 4 whenever they apparently decide they're going to make it. But, yeah, I don't think I'm going to play it. And the only, like, potential redemption that she could get is maybe gaining some confidence and getting that Bayonetta vibe. Because right now she doesn't have any of that. And she's not... Like, this isn't what I play Bayonetta for. It's not that I need a strong, confident character who's super cool and is really awesome. It's like, no, I mean, I'm fine with whatever. But this is Bayonetta. And Bayonetta has been established to be one thing. You can't just, like, throw it into something else. This entire game just made no sense. And I can't believe it left the brainstorming portion of, like, coming up with the ideas for this game. I can't believe not only did that get past the idea phase, it got to full development to this point. Like, pretty much half of what I play Bayonetta for is just gone. Just, I hate it. I just hate it so much. So, it plays well, but it's incredibly disappointing, and I'm mad because of it. If you're only in it for the gameplay, you will enjoy it. I can almost guarantee. Or at least you'll enjoy the Bayonetta sections. I don't know about the rest of it. But if you at all enjoy Bayonetta's story, if you at all enjoy Bayonetta as a character, if you at all enjoy the whole fighting angels thing, this is going to be incredibly disappointing. I should have waited on it, honestly. That's the feeling I'm getting, because I can't even bother with the post-game content, and that makes me really sad, because I so enjoyed the post-game content before. I enjoyed fighting Rodin, and this time it's just like, what's the point? I'm not going to play through it. I'm probably not going to play through the story again. Sometimes I'll play through the story on easy with all the weapons unlocked and just like have fun doing combos. But what's the point this time? Like, I don't enjoy anything else about this, so why should I? Anyway, so that's my rant. All right, so now that I've gone through all three, Bayonetta 3 is just it feels just as bad, if not worse. Now that I've actually played through them all, it's weird because so much about Bayonetta 3 is just not Bayonetta. It's just not. Like, it's trying. It feels like it was made by a completely different studio. I mean, it feels like the combat was made by Platinum, obviously, but everything else just feels like who did all this? Because none of this feels right. The way it, like, yeah, sure, the combos are there, but everything else about it just feels wrong. Like 1 and 2 had these like amazing set pieces. Everything like was in its place. Everything was exactly as it was supposed to be. But 3, it just felt like it felt like everything but the combos were from a different game, and I just something felt off about it, just the entire time. And in Bayonetta 1 and 2, I don't think there were any enemies that were like, you have to beat this enemy this specific way or you can't damage them. But Bayonetta 3 had multiple of those. It had multiple just like combo stoppers. And it's like, why would you do that? Like, this is Bayonetta, why would you add those? Like, that seemed counterintuitive. And then, looking back, I mean, yes, they give you a lot of weapons and that's kind of cool, but it's just they hand you weapons so fast. It's like you don't even have time to get used to a weapon before they hand you like 3 more. Like sure, I like having options, but in Bayonetta 1 and 2, it's like a drip feed, and you have to search out the gold LPs to get your weapons. So it's kind of like you have to be a little proactive in getting your stuff. But in 3, it's just kind of like, here you go, here's some more. Take them, all more, here you go. Like, oh my goodness, just oh my god. And yeah, Bayonetta just her character seemed way different. There's just so much about how Bayonetta 3 feels. It just doesn't feel right. Something's just so off about it. And that's very apparent once you've played through the other games another time, like back to back. And I don't know if that makes it better or worse or what, but just Bayonetta 3 makes me sad. Just makes me upset. Like 3 had just like boring level design. It was all like real world stuff. Yeah, it's more open, but that only matters if the actual level I'm going through is interesting to be in. And it wasn't. The weapons are cool, but there's just so many of them, and you have to upgrade each of your ability trees instead of like just your overall abilities, which was, yes, still like a slow process, but it's not like, no, I'm having to buy the same combo options for each weapon and for each of my, demon slaves. Like, ugh. I would honestly, like, as much as I would rag on Bayonetta 2 for just having just god-awful combos and not wanting to, like, play it as a game, I would rather go back and replay that than replay Bayonetta 3, because Bayonetta 3 just makes me upset. And Bayonetta 1, as frustrating as it is to, like, have to deal with those gameplay hiccups, those few big ones that just, like, make me upset, I would rather go back and play that one than touch Bayonetta 3 again. Like, I'm not even doing the post-game stuff. I don't know, maybe I'm just salty about all of it, but I can't. Whatever, I've got other games to play. Anyway, thanks for listening and have a great day.